Welcome to Fresh Off the Set. I'm Carrie Hawker Diaz.
And I'm David Osmond.
Okay, I'm so excited for this podcast today because I was just thinking about it. Time flies when you get married. We just celebrated 11 years this year. How long have you been married?
We've been married 17 years.
Wow.
So we're coming up on knowing each other for 20 years this next year. It's mind-blowing. In fact, a friend just sent me a text a few minutes ago of just our kids when they were just babies. That was only 10 years ago, but it's like, oh my gosh, where is this time going? So yeah, you look back and it's like, wow, we've been a long, long time together. I don't have to pay royalties on this. But
you only got a snippet of the song. But it's crazy how fast it goes. And Utah, it's like so many people get married here and come into the state and get married. And it's such a beautiful state. And so I sat down with Brittny Hart from Utah Valley Bride magazine, which that company is more than just the magazine. They have a course coming out that I will tell you about if you give this a listen. And there's a lot going on for them.
When it comes to the wedding. Do you remember the wedding day that was yesterday, 11 years ago?
It's
how
crazy.
Your day was and all the details?
I remember it goes so fast. I remember people saying, just enjoy it because it's going to fly. And it does. It's just a few hours and it's gone.
And you're like, what? We just paid for what? Honestly, here's my crash course. Elope. Just take the money and run. No,
to honestly, Utah. Come here.
It was an awesome day. In fact, my wife was on the color of Utah Valley Bride when we were married back.
Oh, she was on the cover of the magazine?
She was, and it was fun to be able to showcase her. And then, of course, all the details of flowers and dress and everything that goes into it. I'm glad I'm a dude in this situation because I just had to kind of nod my head and say, yes, it looks great.
Yes, you look great.
But it is a stressful time.
It is. And
to
you
put
know
it
what?
all together
Utah Valley Bride, they have so many tools and things to help you plan for your special day. And I mentioned the course. They have a wedding planning course coming up that they're going to talk about, which is so cool.
And Brittny Hart, she's taken over there, took the big shoes to fill at Jeanette Bennett, but she's doing awesome. She's the girl to do it. So it's cool to get her insight on the next phase of what Utah Valley is doing.
Has to offer. Well, should we give it a listen?
Let's do it.
Okay. I am so excited to chat with Brittny today with Utah Valley Bride. Brittny, thanks for joining me.
I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we're excited to chat with you. Okay, let's start with just give us an introduction to Utah Valley Bride.
Okay, this is so fun. Utah Valley Bride is such a vibrant, fun company. We have multiple platforms. Most people know us for the magazine that we produce once a year.
Yes.
And that's with the best weddings in Utah. Really, it's a journalism piece just to feature the brides and grooms and couples here in Utah that are just having beautiful weddings. We get to feature their love stories and things like that. So that's a really fun platform. We also have a website with 20 plus years of SEO, and we feature weddings on there as well as a resource of some of our preferred vendors here in Utah. So as couples are looking for their vendor teams for their wedding, they can find resources on our website. We also have an Instagram account, again, where we feature the best of the best. Our purpose is to feature beautiful weddings and provide inspiration for local couples, kind of to be the Pinterest board, but the local version of it, so that when couples get married and they have these big dreams and then they say, how do we actually make this happen for our wedding? They can come to us and find local vendors who have actually done those things. And then they can be connected with those vendors, find those resources, and start planning their weddings. And then, of course, technically we're a media company, so local vendors can purchase advertising across any of those platforms so that they can be seen by these couples that are trying to plan their weddings.
That's so amazing. Here in Utah, we have so many incredible, phenomenal weddings, and a lot of people get married here. And I think we're known for that. So that's so fun that you get to showcase and help show those off and help those people, guide them through their journey, through planning their wedding. Tell us about who you are, and can you share a little bit about your background?
Yes. So my background is weddings. I can't get out of the industry.
Just meant to be.
Yes. I started as a bridal consultant. So I started selling wedding dresses and did that for a few years. It was so much fun. Loved that. Fell in love with the industry. And I had been doing photography a part-time for a while and eventually went full-time. About a decade career as a wedding photographer, getting to travel the world, but spending a lot of time here in Utah with the vendors here and the couples here. And I just have fallen in love with this specific niche of weddings. Utah is very unique when it comes to weddings. The culture here is a little different, but there's something very booming about the culture in Utah, the economy here. And because of that, there are a lot of wedding vendors in Utah compared to, and so it's a really interesting community of vendors, and they have become my best friends. Like, we have been kind of coworkers for the last decade, and I just love these people. So I am not doing wedding photography anymore, and being involved in Utah Valley Bride is the next phase of my involvement in the wedding industry here.
Wow, you were just surrounded, and you must love it to been. I mean, you've done it for so long. And tell us what inspired you to take over Utah Valley Bride.
Yeah, so wedding photography felt like that season was done, and I had been aware of that for about a year and a half, but hadn't really decided to be done with wedding photography yet. And around that same time, the previous owner and the founder of Utah Valley Bride was looking to sell the company. This is Jeanette Bennett. She's the owner.
Yes, I love her. I've met her, and she's been, love her.
Yeah, she's amazing and very, very accomplished. Bennett Communications is the company that founded Utah Valley Bride and lots and lots of other magazines. And they were producing many, many magazines every year, like up to 30, I believe. And Utah Valley Bride was the only wedding magazine there. And they felt like it just needed a little more attention. And also Jeanette was at the same time having lots of other really amazing opportunities that she needed to put her brain space into. And so it just made sense. It was the right timing for them to kind of hand this off to someone else who knew the industry well. And it was the right timing for me to kind of step in and do that and put wedding photography away and step into this space instead.
And when is that you stepped over?
This was end of last year.
End of last year. Okay. And what types of content can readers expect to see under your leadership? Like, have you changed things? Are you planning on changing things? What's your vision?
Yeah, so I mentioned the different platforms that we have across social media and our website, as far as blogs and features there. In addition to the annual magazine, we're going to keep all of those. We are ramping up the number of weddings that we feature every year. So there's going to be more inspiration, more features, more shout outs to brides and grooms, more shout outs to different vendors. What we're trying to do is feature a really beautiful range of couples, because a lot of the time we think of young couples getting married for the first time, but there's a lot of second weddings happening here in Utah. I just heard about this couple. It makes me so happy. They met in high school, and they were sweethearts in high school, and they have all these little cute notes and letters to each other. They ended up separating and marrying other people, and now in their 60s, they've found each other and gotten married to each other.
Okay,
finally.
That's so cute.
Fun stories like that. There's such a range of like really rich, beautiful stories here in Utah, and our goal is to feature more of those.
I love that. Well, that kind of leads into my next question, I guess. Are there any specific demographics you're aiming to reach with your content? I mean, you're kind of mentioning everyone.
Yeah, so of course we are a local Utah magazine, so our demographic is anyone in Utah that's getting married, but also anyone who's coming to Utah to get married. We have a lot of beautiful locations here in Utah that are very unique, from the Salt Flats to Park City to the Red Rocks down south. We've got really kind of unusual variety here in Utah, so there's a lot of destination weddings coming in, and those couples need to find vendors that are based here in Utah as well.
Sure. Oh, it's so beautiful to get married here in Utah. We have so many options. It is just the most stunning place, in my opinion. So it's so fun to see people coming out of town to come here to tie the knot. How do you plan to enhance the magazine's digital presence? Speaking of the magazine.
So the magazine, that's so interesting because it obviously is a physical printed magazine. We're going to keep it that way because there's something really cool about having it, kind of like, it's almost like a flashback when people used to cut out the pictures in the magazine and put it together in mood boards, right?
Yes.
And we hear stories about couples who are actually still doing this, right? So it's really fun to have a physical magazine, but it just fills a different need as far as the way that people do their research for their weddings. But in order to expand our digital presence across the company, on our website, we do have, even on our social media, on all the platforms we have a really good track record of SEO, because we've been doing this for 20 plus years. And so there's really, really great history of all the content there. But we are planning to expand networks into other social media platforms. So that's something that we're already working on, and that we're going to come out and do a little more talking about that in the next handful of months. But really, the more content we produce, the more our digital footprint expands, and we produce a lot. Like we post a lot of content, and we're trying so hard to keep up with all of the great stuff that is sent in to us. We get hundreds and hundreds of submissions from gorgeous weddings, and we're trying to get them all featured.
That's so cool. Okay, you mentioned SEO. For listeners who aren't familiar, can you explain what that is?
Yes. So SEO is usually referring to the Google search engine, just meaning that on our website, we have a really good track record of using the right keywords and showing Google that we are a legitimate company, which means that when vendors search for anything that is listed on our website, whether that's preferred vendors or wedding education or things like that, our website is going to come up really quickly, which is great for vendors who are paying for advertising, but it's also great for couples who are searching for resources.
Sure, that's amazing. Okay, and you mentioned social media a little bit with how crazy it is now, and that's how everyone is advertising. What role do you see social media playing in your strategy for Utah Valley Bride?
I would say the most important thing is featuring all of these couples. That's our main priority. It's just providing so much inspiration and beautiful content so that the couples that are getting married next have really good resources and inspiration to see, like, oh, this is the thing I've always dreamed of. I actually can do that in Utah.
Yeah.
And here's the team of vendors that made it happen for this other couple, right? So I think that's our main goal, is to continue providing relevant resources in the form of inspiration. But also, and just like you referred to, social media is key right now. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting here in Utah, well, not even in Utah, just in general in the wedding industry, vendors and couples only meet each other at an event. Most vendors work from home, or they work from their studio and they show up at the event.
True.
So the best way for people to meet each other or to kind of interview each other and see if they're a good fit to work together is on social media. And so what we're doing is we're trying to create a really good community and foster a place where people can connect and communicate with each other.
Okay, so cool. And you mentioned a little bit about featuring local brides. If there's a bride listening and they really want to be featured, they're thinking, okay, I know my wedding's going to be top notch, my photography, my cake, my venue, and is there a secret? How do we get featured, Brittny, if someone's thinking, I want to be featured?
A great question. Okay, so the first thing to do is talk to your vendor team. So if they have a wedding photographer or a wedding planner, those are the two main vendors who are going to know how to get featured. So if you've already hired those people, talk to them and get their advice, because they know more about your wedding than we do, and they can give you specific suggestions on that. Specifically, what we look for is things that are inspirational, beautiful, things that make people go, wow, that's gorgeous. And we do that. We specifically look for that in things that are personal. So instead of just a kind of a copy and paste wedding, include something that's really unique to your experience. Or if you have a dog, include dog treats as party favors for your guests.
Cute.
Or cute things like that make it feel very, very you specific. That's really on trend right now, and it's so fun to include those details in love stories. So those are the two main things that we're looking for. And if you already have your wedding pictures back, photos or videos, you can submit those on our website, and those go through our submission process where we go through them and just make sure we have all the vendors tagged and make sure it's the kind of content we're looking for, and then we can feature it.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for that. Do you have any plans or collaborations or partnerships with local businesses or influencers? And, do you see yourself doing those a lot?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole business model. Collaborating with vendors is the entire business. I would say about half of the content that we feature across all of our platforms is free content that comes in through submissions. So photographers or brides or whomever will submit their weddings because they're gorgeous and they want to get featured. And most of the time we agree and we feature those for free and just give shout outs. Honestly, we kind of take the personality of the fangirl, and we're just like, look at all these amazing weddings. fun vendors. So that's about half the content we produce. The other half is when we partner with vendors who want to advertise on our platforms. And so I would say collaboration with vendors is the entire wedding industry. That's what it's built on.
Okay. Speaking of the industry, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the wedding industry here in Utah?
In the past, the biggest challenge has been that Utah is usually 2 years behind on trends.
Interesting. 2 years.
Yes. Usually Europe has the trend, and then New York grabs it, and then Utah comes in last.
2 years later. Okay.
But that is changing. I think mass media and just easier access to media has been changing. And Utah brides are starting to push the trend boundary a little bit, kind of set a new tone here for the culture of weddings in Utah. And that has been really fun for us to watch. So I would say that's a smaller challenge now than it was in the past. And we're just, kudos to all of the brides and grooms who are choosing to be extra stylish and set some trends. That's really fun. I would say the biggest concern or the biggest challenge that couples who are planning their weddings right now are looking at is that the average cost of a wedding has increased significantly in the last handful of years. And people recognize that, especially in a situation where parents are helping to cover the cost of the weddings and things like that. A lot of people are surprised by the investment, and then that causes a lot of stress. And then they don't know the steps to, prioritize or allocate their funds to certain things. Planning a wedding is like a full-time job when you have never done any research into it.
Yeah.
So that's the struggle that we're seeing with a lot of couples right now, just that it's a little overwhelming when they're educated about how to do the wedding. So we've created a wedding planning course that walks through all of that, sets expectations, and gives some step-by-step steps, especially in the budget category, to help alleviate that stress.
Sure. Okay. And you mentioned that we're sometimes 2 years behind on wedding trends, which makes sense if it's coming over from Europe. Are you seeing anything for 2024 into 2025 wedding trends for this year into next year?
Yeah, this year it's all about bows. It's kind of frilly. Bows, lots and lots of pink. I think the Barbie movie influenced that. I don't know if that's going to follow into next year, but what I am seeing a lot of this year is floral. It seems like a lot of people are investing their budget into beautiful floral, which is beautiful on camera, of course, but it's more beautiful in person. So it seems like couples are leaning towards the in-person experience and putting more of their budget into creating an experience for the guests, almost to honor them for being there to support them. And in some cases, that means that they're keeping their guest list a little bit smaller so they can spend per person a little bit more per plated meal or per floral per person.
Sure. Make it more of an experience that they want, which is a smaller list. Yeah, smart. Brittny, how do you stay informed and inspired by industry trends? Are you just continually watching Europe, or how do you stay informed and inspired?
We stalk everything. We stalk the internet. We're everywhere. Our team, obviously, that's fun for us to do. We just get to scroll through weddings all day. But what we're looking for with trends are new things that we see continually. So like one person that wears a fun new fabric, that's a really fun statement. But if we start seeing that fabric or that shape of dress or that type of coloring or something like that multiple times, then we make a note of that. And usually around the time that we see that, there's like a month or two later, there's a bride or groom who submits that same style of wedding because they also saw it and they implemented it quickly. We have, I think, the generation that's coming into the wedding space right now, the brides and grooms, they are excited to push industry trends, and just their fashion sense is a little bit more daring. And so that's part of why the trends are being picked up a little bit faster. But yeah, it's really fun to watch.
Oh, for sure. I can only imagine, like, being in the industry. It's fun for me as like an outsider just to see oh, this wedding looks so cool. I can only imagine what you guys go through and what you get to see. That's so fun. What advice would you give to brides and grooms listening right now and they're planning their weddings in Utah? I know that's like an open book, but is there just a couple things that you would want to say to them?
Yes, I think that there's a few steps that would be quite important to have before you actually dive into researching and hiring vendors and things like that. It all comes down to education and communication. So I would say before even bringing in other people's opinions or talking to family members, I think the couple should have a good discussion on what type of event they want to throw. Maybe the two of them really just want a small event, but if they don't have the chance to talk about that, they may be swayed into a really large event because their parents want that or that type of understanding what type of event they want, what their priorities are. Then the next step would be for each of them to outline their priorities, specifically in experience or vendor type. So for example, a bride might prioritize her flowers, her dress, and her hair and makeup. Or the groom might say, I want really good food and I want to make sure I have time that morning to hang out with my groomsmen without feeling stressed, or things like that. So once they understand their three priorities, then they can plan the entire wedding day around that. The next step would be finding out a realistic budget of how much that type of event is going to be, how much they need to invest into that. This is where a wedding planner comes in really handy because they could tell you immediately without having to do research on that, give you really good resources there. And then the next step is to determine, based on that budget, based on your goals, which vendors you're going to hire. And then if you want to DIY some of your own projects, determining which projects would be applicable for DIY, because some things like catering probably shouldn't be DIY regulations and food safety. Like there's some legal things with that, So I think those would be the steps to start with before you start hiring vendors.
That's really good advice. Thank you. Those are awesome steps and very important to take it first. And what else would help is a wedding planning course, which you're launching. Tell us more about that.
Oh, we're so excited. Okay, this has been in the works for a long time. It has turned into a much more hefty course than we expected it to be, which is why it has taken a long time, and it's going to be totally worth it. So this is going to be available on our website later this month. This is applicable for local brides and grooms and out-of-state couples if they're coming in for a destination wedding. Overall, the content is really helpful for anybody planning a wedding in state or out of state, but we've given specific recommendations for Utah weddings that are very relevant here. Having a wedding planner for your wedding is so helpful. Also, it is an investment. So there are some couples who would prefer to use their budget elsewhere, and there are just some couples who are really excited to plan their weddings by themselves. However, nobody actually knows how to plan a wedding until they've gone through the process and figured it out the painful way. So our course is intended to give step-by-step instructions in the correct order to teach people how to organize and coordinate details that nobody would ever think of, but that will avoid stress for couples and family members later on. So it's pretty in-depth. We even have a section that coaches couples through how to have the budget discussion with their family members, which is often one of the most parts of the wedding planning experience, and can cause some tension between family members. So we're trying to alleviate a lot of those things. A wedding planner here in Utah, Cachet & Co. Events. She's a professional wedding planner. She's amazing. She put this course together and co-branded it with us. It's so in-depth. There's over 40 videos walking through everything from, like I mentioned, budgeting, the DIY successes and dangers, like how to not have Pinterest fail a wedding, how to make a guest list, timeline, really in-depth suggestions on timeline and things to plan into your day so that it's not stressful. And based on vendor categories, even like how to choose your vendors, things to consider with pros and cons of different styles of hair and makeup. And like there's so much in here, including spreadsheets with your budget calculators and like a workbook that they can print out and fill in as they're learning and going through their steps. So there's a lot in here. This is going to be a digital course that can be purchased and then implemented immediately. And I think I think it's going to alleviate a lot of stress. And also, planning a wedding usually takes about 400 hours, and people don't know that until they dive into it. And I think this is going to direct all of that energy into the correct things, so that planning a wedding is less stressful and more like a team building exercise, which is what it really should be when you're walking into the season of marriage.
Oh, that's such good advice. Oh, that's so good. The wedding planning course. So true. Have the professionals help you through the most important day of your life. And, when it really comes down to it, it's about that love and, marrying the person that you love most in your life, being surrounded by friends and family. And speaking of love, what do you love most about working in the wedding industry, Brittny?
I think my favorite part of the wedding industry is this maybe sounds a little cheesy, but the loving atmosphere kind of charges the energy. And the cool thing from a vendor perspective, when we're working on a project for clients, we're working with a bride and interviewing them and hearing about how it all went, there's this energy around the project that is just kind of buzzy and exciting, because it is all about their love story. Like it is just honoring them. And I think witnessing that, the love story, but also witnessing how the couples choose to present that and share it with their loved ones is really beautiful. And then it's also amazing just to watch those vendors. We're all friends with each other. It's really fun to watch our community come together and really bend over backwards. Like, it's so fun to watch these vendors do anything they possibly can to make each wedding the best wedding it possibly can be. It's really a selfless industry, and it's really a beautiful thing to watch that.
Yeah, to make that day magical, which is the ultimate goal for everyone involved. Well, it's been so fun chatting with you, Brittny. We're going to do a fresh five really quick and get to know you a little bit better. I'm going to ask you some questions. You can just say real quick what's on the top of your head. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, number one, East Coast or West Coast?
West Coast.
Harry Potter or Hunger Games?
Harry Potter.
Bird watching or stargazing?
Stargazing.
Sweet or salty snacks?
Salty every single time.
What's your go-to salty snack?
Chips and salsa.
Every time. Me too. I love it. You cannot go wrong. Okay, last one. What makes you smile?
Sparkly things.
That's a great answer. I love it.
Like jewels or fabric, anything that sparkles.
Makes your eyes twinkle. I love it.
Yep.
Okay, Brittny, this has been so fun. Where can we go follow you and then also get more information on the wedding planning course?
Yes. Okay. So you can go to our website at utahvalleybride.com. And in August, the wedding planning course will be live on the website. It'll just be in the menu bar and on the homepage.
Perfect.
And then for people who want to follow, we have an Instagram account, which is at utahvalleybride.com.
At utahvalleybride.com. Easy as that. Brittny, it's been so fun. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to chat with you.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.